Do you need to upsize or downsize this year? Well, on this episode of the Happy House Hacking podcast, we are going to share the 5 best strategies to make that dream a reality. Welcome back to the Happy House Hacking podcast, the podcast designed to help young people in California achieve home ownership. We're your hosts, Owen and Camille Schwagerly, and we're realtors, investors, and house hackers. So we're here to share more tips and strategies on how to help you in your upcoming move. Whether you're looking to upsize from your current house or downsize, this is going to be the show to give you the guidance you need to make that decision.
Yes, so there are 5 strategies that we're going to go over in this episode on how to help people when they're thinking about making a move. So this applies if you've already bought a home, you own a home today. And this is an amazing statistic. This year, 2024, the average U.S. house owner is sitting on $300,000 in equity.
Wow.
So that's amazing. So if you own a house on average anywhere in the country from coast to coast, north to south, the average person is sitting on $300,000 in equity.
Yeah, that's a huge benefit when you're thinking about, okay, if I sell my home, then that means I can roll in my equity to my down payment on my next house.
Exactly. And so this is really coming into play for people who they're in a house that isn't quite what they need anymore. Maybe they need to upsize. Maybe they need to downsize. Maybe they need to relocate to be closer to family. And for a while, the rate lock effect limited people from wanting to move. The good news is with rates coming down, more people are looking to move and they're tapping into that equity that they've built, which can help them a lot with their next purchase.
Yeah. And even right now, I'd say in the last 6 months, we have seen the majority of our clients who are looking to make a move, they need to upsize more so than downsize. We're seeing a lot of upsize take place, whether they are having more kids, so they need more bedrooms, or we're seeing even people starting to move in with their aging parents as a way to help care for them during that next season of life. So they want kind of 2 master suites on either end of the house, and just to make one home living feel a little bit more separated when you choose to move in with your parents.
Or an at-home office.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
A big consideration. People can work from home. They need that office space plus the other rooms to have their family or the guest rooms for their family. So yes, there's many reasons people are upsizing right now. Okay, so we have a flyer. It's going to be available if you want. Check out the show notes. We've got a link for what these 5 strategies are, and we'll go through them right now, starting with number 1, which is buy first, sell second. So let's go over that. This strategy works really well if you can qualify for 2 mortgages at the same time.
Yeah, this is definitely the best case scenario, right? You want to be able to find your home. This is the one I want. Let's buy it. And then let me move into it. Then I can sell my vacant house, not have to deal with showings because I'm not there anymore. And then I'll get my proceeds and just roll it into my house next time. It's also one of the more challenging options because it's really hard to qualify, especially in California, for another home purchase without selling your current house, especially if we are sitting on $300,000 or more of equity. We need that for a down payment.
Yeah. So this would be a great option versus going through some of the other options, which involve contingencies and kind of weaken your offering position. So this puts you in a great position as a buyer to get your offer accepted and to be a strong buyer that a seller is wanting to work with. And we'll get to what those contingencies are a little bit later, but this is a pretty valid method of buying property.
So if you are able to do this, absolutely. Let's talk to a lender. Let's see if you are pre-approved to buy another home without selling your current home until after you've already moved out of it.
Yes. And another method that might work for you is actually what's called a bridge loan. And the way a bridge loan works is they basically take the equity from your house and make a bridge to your new house. And so basically the equity serves as kind of the down payment or the collateral to help you get into your new house. And then they can go back. And then once you sell this house later, you pay off all that extra debt to acquire your new home. And you don't have to go through the rigmarole of listing and selling your house.
Yes, we have seen clients use this when they have a lot of equity in their home and they are going to list their house well in order to get multiple offers somewhat quickly, because there are higher fees associated with a bridge loan rather than a conventional loan. So you don't want to be on the market for a long time if you just bought a house using a bridge loan. You don't want to be sitting on your listing.
Definitely. You want to have a plan and be able to list your property quickly, sell it fast. And so one of our clients, they relocated here from the Bay Area. They had a house to sell there and they knew it would go very quickly, but we needed to be competitive to get their offer accepted here. And so we were able to make an offer that was quick, and it was a pretty quick escrow.
It was, yeah. Because they had owned their home for over 20 years. They almost owned it free and clear at that point, but they had more equity in their Bay Area home than what it cost them to buy the home on the Central Coast, because it was more affordable here in our area.
Yeah. So they had a great transaction, very smooth, and they just had to pay extra fees and interest in order to get that loan product. But it reduced the amount of stress or anxiety of, oh my gosh, we have to list our house, we have to sell it. And one of the downsides is once you are contingent upon selling before you buy, it can create a situation where you have to pay more or you have to sell your house for less than what you could, because you're now time strapped and you have a timeline you have to meet.
I just saw a quote on a notebook today at the coffee shop we went to that said, if something costs you your peace, it is too expensive. And it's so true. I've been thinking about it all day, because in that situation, yeah, sure, it might be more expensive than a conventional loan for a couple months, but our clients were so at peace throughout the whole transaction. And that couple extra $1,000 was worth it to them in order to avoid the stress and the hassle of a contingent situation.
Totally. So that's option number one. Buy first, sell second. Then there's option number two, which is buy first and then turn your current house into a rental.
Yeah, so that's also another ideal strategy, because then you get to keep your old house, the house you're currently in, and you find a great tenant, and maybe you'll be able to get more than what your mortgage is, depending on what your mortgage is. And that would be awesome to have that additional rental income. The only caveat to that is typically a lender is going to want to see a copy of a lease agreement that your house is currently actively a rental by the time you go and purchase your new home. So that's just something to keep in mind. Every situation is different, but we've seen that fairly often for our clients who have turned their first home into a rental and bought their second house.
Yes, and that's exactly what we did on our last move, was turned our house into a rental before we bought this home here, and it worked out great. And the income from it actually helped us qualify for the mortgage on this place. So that's one of the great ways to build wealth is buy a house using the owner occupant loan. You get that lower interest rate. It's like 2 point something percent or 3% on that.
Well, at the time,
but
not today.
Right. So, but if you're able to, and the numbers make sense, you can keep that property, rent it out. Hopefully your rents cover the mortgage and help you qualify for your new home loan. So it's a great strategy, but not everyone wants to be a landlord. Not everyone wants to have a rental. And so it doesn't work for everyone, but it can be a great way to keep that property, to build wealth through real estate investing and get your new home at the same time.
Yep. And the third option that we see the most, which is fairly common, it is also probably the most challenging
and stressful,
but it is the most common. And that is buying a new house and selling your house at the same time. So when you wrote an offer on the new home that you want, you said, okay, great, I'm going to buy your house contingent upon selling my house. So you have those contingencies in place, which really, it is stressful, but you can make it through it.
Yes. Because think about it. There's 180 steps in a real estate transaction. And now you've got 2 transactions going on, which means there's over 300 things that could go wrong in a transaction.
Oh, yeah. And we've actually get this. We've seen the daisy chain of contingencies a few times where our client is buying their new home contingent upon the sale of their house. And then their buyer for their current house is contingent upon selling their house. And that's just over the top stressful.
It is, because there's a lot out of your control. And so it's something you want to make sure you navigate really well. And let's go over what that contingency is, because there's two different contingencies at play in this type of transaction typically. So first, you are buying your house, the new one, contingent upon you selling your current house. So that means that you're writing an offer contingent upon that one actually selling, which means that if your house does not sell, you cannot buy that house. And so you can actually cancel escrow and you're protected. Your earnest money deposit is protected. So there's no real risk to you in that type of situation.
Exactly.
From the purchase.
Yes. And then let's say you wrote an offer and you're under contract to buy this house, but for whatever reason, you can't get that house anymore and it's outside of your control. Then that means you don't have to sell your current house, and then you don't have to sell it to the buyers, because when you accepted the offer from your buyer, you said, great, I'll sell you my house contingent upon me securing a suitable replacement property for me and my family. Well, hey, that property just fell through, so sorry, you can't have my house anymore. So you have that contingency to protect you as well.
Yes. So there's two different contingencies at play, and this is really important that you get both contingencies added into both of your purchase agreements. So there's the contingency of buyer property selling, and then there's the contingency of seller to find a suitable replacement property. And so the ideal scenario is you line them up to have the same day for closing, or perhaps one right after the other. Or perhaps if you're selling your house, having some form of short-term lease back or an option to stay for a few days to get ready to move into your new house.
Yes. And we've done all of the above for our clients.
Yeah.
I know on the times where we've had escrows close the exact same day, that has been stressful. It's been doable, but we've usually seen it be a little smoother if you can get the rent back for a few days or maybe a couple weeks in order to move into your new house. So that's just something to keep in mind and to talk to your real estate team when you are considering an upsize or a downsize and you have to sell your house. It's the most common way to go about upsizing or downsizing. And it just happens to be more stressful because there's just so many unknowns. So what we advise the majority of our clients to do if they're in this situation is to turn your current home into a sellable asset by taking down all your family pictures, sprucing it up, maybe painting the walls a more neutral color if they've been painted loud, crazy colors, and then list your house for sale first, contingent upon finding a suitable replacement property. Then we go searching. Because when we're writing offers with your house already on the market or in escrow, you're that much stronger of a buyer and a seller is much more likely to accept your offer. It is so challenging to get your offer accepted if you're contingent upon the sale of your house and your house isn't even listed. A seller isn't going to think that you are a serious buyer, and we want to position you in the best light possible, especially since you are contingent. And that also kind of means you may have to write a stronger offer and come up on price in order to even be entertained.
Right. Yeah. The seller has no real incentive or desperate need to take an offer because it's not even a real offer yet, because your house hasn't sold. So think about it from the perspective of the sellers. If you have two offers on your property, one's conventional financing, close in 30 days. The other is contingent upon the sale of a house, not yet on the market. It's a 45-day escrow, and that buyer has 20 days, 21 days to back out if their house doesn't sell. Which one do you think they're going to go for?
Exactly. They are not even going to consider the contingent offer. However, it may be a consideration if their price is screaming. Maybe they're $50,000 over the ask price and they're like, you know what? That's worth the extra 15 days of a transaction if I can make $50,000 more. That's the reality of a
Yeah.
contingent offer. It's sad, but true. You have to come in as strong as possible. A low ball plus contingent, there's no way. Not
Yeah.
even a consideration.
It will not happen. And that's where, going back to option one, if you can buy before you sell, you're in a better position because you have stronger negotiating power. The sellers are looking at that offer saying, oh, there's a big ding on this offer. It's contingent, and contingencies kind of have a bad reputation because it's not a sure thing. They're taking a big risk. Taking their house off the market to go under contract is a big risk because that seller is now bound to waiting it out for us, hopefully to sell the house. So I can think of a couple of clients in the past where we have done it this way, where we've written offers before their house was listed for sale. And the sad reality was they got beat up many times. We wrote several offers and they didn't get their offer accepted. They came in below asking. They didn't get their offer accepted. And we finally had to write offers at the asking price, making all the other contingencies shorter and sweeter. And then the sellers took us more seriously.
Yes.
And it works better too if that seller has been on the market for a long period of time. If it's a hot, fresh new listing, which usually the best priced homes that look the nicest go the fastest, you're not likely to get that offer accepted if you're contingent and their house isn't yet listed. But if it's been 90 days on the market, they're sitting for a long time, you have a much better chance of getting a contingent offer accepted.
Exactly. Well, that also leads us to option number 4, which is this one requires some extra strength because another great scenario is for you to be able to sell your house first, then buy your house next, and then do a lease back on your current house. So maybe you sell your house and you negotiate, hey, I need, 2 months in order to rent this back. Then I can go shopping within that 2-month time frame and I can write really strong offers because I already have cash in the bank. Now, this option only works if you find a buyer who's willing to do that. Mm-hmm. And there are buyers out there, and usually with the loan products, they can only do it for up to 60 days. And it also works really well if you are a very decisive buyer and you're like, I am moving no matter what. I don't need something super specific. I just know I need to move to this part of town. I want a standard 3-bed, 2-bath that's relatively turnkey. Okay, great. We can do that. So you're decisive. You know what you want. You already have your money in the bank and you're leasing back your current house. So you don't need to, move 2 times necessarily, but it still requires you to be strong and decisive to make that decision.
Right. And another component to this is making sure that your house is a marketable, sellable asset that people want to buy so bad that there's a little bit of a bidding war. If you have 1, 2, 3 buyers writing offers on your house, you're going to be in a stronger negotiating position where you could do a seller multiple counter offer back to those buyers and say, hey, look, I like your offer. It's great. We want to counter you on some price, some of these other terms. And in order for us to go with you, we need to have a 1-month free stay or a 2-month rent back for $1 a month. So you can negotiate it whichever direction you want. But it's really important that if this is important to you to rent your house back, we have to make your listing attractive enough to get you those multiple offers to find that buyer who is willing to let you rent the house back after you sell it to the new buyer.
Exactly. Yep. And then the last option is for someone who...
One other story on that. I just remembered.
Okay, tell us.
There was a client. So one of our clients had an older home. It was like a 100-year-old home that they wanted to sell and move out of, and they wanted new construction. And this lined up perfectly. We listed their house super well, found multiple offers, and we ended up going to the buyer. They paid over $100K over the asking price, and they gave them a free stay, a rent back.
Yeah, I think it actually was quite a few months. They were a cash buyer, so they weren't restricted on a length of time that they could rent it as part of their loan. So I think our clients were there for 3 or 4 months by the time their brand new construction house was ready for them to move into.
And it worked perfectly because they were able to live in their house. They didn't have to move twice. They were able to stay there, and the new construction was being built. And New construction is great if you're trying to upsize or downsize, typically because it's less competitive. It's simply you put your deposit down and you win. It's not a multiple offer bidding war type situation like some of the resale market is. You just have to be first in line, put your deposit down, and they do work with contingent buyers quite well, actually. So we could help you find that new construction community that would work with you on your timeline for selling your house. And essentially, that's what we did here. 4 months, free rent back. And then when the construction was completed, they were able to just move out of that house and go on into the new one.
I'm glad you remembered that one. That was a good one. Yeah, that was really smooth.
It was.
That was a really good one. And that took the right buyer to be able to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so back to the last one. Option number 5, which is also a really good one, and it requires a level of flexibility, is you sell your house first, then you move into a rental of some sort or some form of short-term housing, and then you buy your next house. So it does involve moving 2 times, which is not as ideal, but it works very well because the pressure is off for finding a home in a short amount of time. You already have cash in the bank. You can make strong offers. You're ready to go. There is also an extra level of motivation too, because maybe you don't want to stay in the rental for very long. We've seen clients say, yeah, sure, I'll rent for about a year or 2 and then find something. And then we've also seen other clients who are like, I only want to rent for the next 2 or 3 months. And by the end of summer, I have to find my new home. So it really depends on what your needs are. But that makes you in a very strong position as a buyer. It also makes you in a really strong position as a seller because something we didn't touch on with option 3, when you're contingent and you're in that situation, you are more likely to concede on a sales price as a seller if you're desperate to sell your home because you're already under contract on your purchase. So allowing that freedom of not being so tied up on, I have to get my house sold ASAP in order for me to get the home I'm already under contract on, that just gives you that freedom. So it's pretty important. If you are able to move twice, that would be something to consider because then you can still get a strong sales price and make competitive offers as a buyer.
So true. Yeah, the example on that is, let's say you're under contract to sell and the buyer for your house knows that if your house doesn't sell, you're going to lose out on your new house, the one you're trying to move to that fits your family's needs, the one that has the more space or whatever it is, the yard that you need. That buyer knows that information typically because it's a contingency. And so they can come back to you and say, hey, you know what? The house needs some work. I need a big price reduction or a closing cost credit, or I want you to fix it. And they've got us now in a corner because they know if we say no, that buyer could cancel on us and then you could potentially lose that new house. So the stress in that transaction on both the sell side and the buy side for you is at a higher level. The stakes are higher. And so that's where you end up having to pay more typically and then maybe sell for less. And so the differential, it helps people because they don't want to sell before they buy because, I don't know where I'm moving, but it actually ends up costing you more in the long run, typically.
Exactly. And that's where, as real estate educators too, we want to make sure that you are empowered to make the decision where, hey, you might need to be a little bit uncomfortable and move 2 times in order to be the most profitable.
That is so true. And I think of all of our clients over the years, we've done a myriad of these options and it works. It can work. Sometimes it takes writing multiple offers if you are trying to do the buy and sell contingent simultaneously. One of our clients, we just got their new home under contract, works perfectly for their family's needs. They're doing a multi-generational housing thing to take care of their aging parents. And they were actually contingent on 2 houses selling. So
that weren't even on the market yet.
And so getting that
was
offer
miraculous.
accepted
truly.
Was miraculous. It was really tough to do. And, you have to pay for it. You got to pay out asking typically or more in order to get the seller to really consider your offer. So it can be done. And we're encouraging people right now, since they are sitting on so much equity, $300,000 in equity. If your house doesn't meet your needs, if it's not a place you love living, it's maybe time to consider making that move.
Yeah, so we encourage you to reach out to your local real estate team. If you don't have one and you're located on the Central Coast, we're always happy to meet with you and see if we'd be a good working match. If you'd like recommendations, depending on where you are located in California, we have quite a wide network of referral partners that we'd be happy to share with you. It's just so important to have these conversations and be as clear as possible with your real estate team about what your needs are. So that way, out of these 5 options, we can customize a plan for you based on your individual needs.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. It would mean so much to us. And please leave us a review as well on whichever platform that you're listening to this on. And as always, make it a great day.